So one of my favorite parks in this gosh darn city is Fred George Park. The park is located off Fred George Road near Capitol Circle on traditional Muskogee land. There's a baseball field, a football field, and if you're looking for a nice gentle hike, or if you want to go on an easy, cool run, Fred George Park is your place.
It's all around me.
Okay, so jokes aside, this place has some really neat nature, and it is in fact a wetland, and it's got wetland animals and plants, such as the southern toad. When I was there the other day, I saw a heron fly, but I didn't have my good camera on me. Yay. There's lots of wetland plants here also, including tons of cypress trees. Here's a little baby one. There are a lot of cypress knees all over too, as well as frogspit, or Libnobium spongia. Also, Cuculasia esculenta was everywhere. So Fred George Park is actually my favorite because it has some really cool rocks. Nice fossils, lots of karst, and there's actually a really cool sinkhole here. Not one you can swim in, not one you would want to swim in, but that's why I like it. And I went there for the first time as a field trip when I was interning at the Florida Geological Survey. And you might be saying, okay, Lindsay and JNU geology nerds, why are these rocks important to the wetland? And to figure that out, we talked to Harley Means, who works at the Florida Geological Survey.
And you know about the significance of Fred George Sink. It's a special kind of a sinkhole that we call a swallette, right? And a swallette is just, a place like Fred George where surface water disappears underground through a sinkhole.
So swallettes are these fancy sinkholes, and they're really all over Florida and all over Tallahassee. Here's a map that the Florida Geological Survey has on its website, and you can see all the swallettes. And here I'm showing you Fred George Sink and its proximity to Lake Jackson. So what's extra neato burrito about Fred George Park is that the sinkholes are actually growing, and it's soon going to become like a giant sinkhole lake in a long time, and probably will be part of Lake Jackson, which I think is super cool. Currently, the sinkholes at Fred George Park are rapidly moving surface water underground. This means that you can come out here one week and it's completely dry like it is in the video I'm showing you right now. Great for a run. You check it out, you bring your friend back. Maybe right near a tropical storm isn't the smartest idea, but the next week it's flooded. And you can't run because it's completely covered in water. And this has a huge impact on the area.
The Fred George Sink is a swallette, and that means that surface water can move rapidly to it and then rapidly underground. And if you really want wetlands to function, you need that water to stay in the wetland long enough for those chemical reactions to take place to, sort of remove some of those things that we don't want in our groundwater.
So essentially, Fred George takes surface water runoff with all this gross trash in it, and it moves it underground into the water we drink. And it's actually been dye traced to multiple wells in the Tallahassee area. Here are some pieces of trash I found just walking around. But the thing is, it's not just the trash the problem. It's not just the big pieces. There's actually an oil sheen around all of this garbage. And these particulates can easily get into our groundwater. Seep right through the swallette, seep right into, ew, look at this stuff. I wouldn't even want to, fall into this stuff, and I like mud.
And so think about, not only all that floating garbage that you guys see back there that goes to the sink, but think about all the dissolved constituents and all the other crap that's in that water that's immediately going underground with, essentially no filtration and no removal of any of those chemical constituents. It's kind of alarming because we all get our drinking water from the same place that water is going, right?
The trash here is a big issue, but humans have done some other things that also affect the ecology of the area.
So there are some dikes and berms, and so that whole area has been modified and changed. And when you change, wetland areas, it can sometimes be catastrophic to the critters that rely on it because you change the hydro period. And when it was normally dry, it's now wet, or vice versa. And some animals key in on wetlands during certain periods of time, and they need to make sure that when they do it, there's adequate water down there. So I'm sure there's been tremendous impacts to the ecology of that area, unfortunately.
And sometimes, even when trying to help out, humans can be a little bit destructive.
We have to do something with it because we get so much rainfall, all this impervious surface. When you get a 1, 2 inch, 3 inch rainfall event, all of that rainwater runs off and has to go somewhere. So typically we channel it to retention ponds and detention ponds, right? Well, we've already been talking about the karst nature of Florida. So when you funnel all that water to a pond that is supposed to retain it, yet it's sitting right on top of porous and permeable limestone, oftentimes we see sinkhole formation in the bottoms of these big retention ponds.
We then talked a little bit about how Lake Alberta over by the stadium is a big example of this.
They have a nice big walkway around it now. But when they first dug into and started constructing that one, about 16 sinkholes opened in the bed of it because the stone is so close to the surface. Put that water somewhere such that it's going to be cleaned somewhat. It needs to be able to stay there for long enough to have that happen. So we can't expect it to happen like that when you're building it on top of a giant sponge. So we got to do a better job.
So, how do we do a better job?
Guess what? Some of us do know how the earth will react, and there are people like you and me. And maybe if these engineers would consult with geologists before they decided to, put a giant holding pond somewhere, maybe we could say, hey, that's probably not the best place to put this because of, the proximity of the limestone to the surface. Maybe you need to put it over here.
So, to bring it back to Fred George Park, I think this place is really cool because it really drives home a certain message. First off, dispose of your trash properly. Duh, that makes sense. We all do that. But also that we're all students and we're learning about the earth and the processes that affect it in classes like this. And we can use that information that we learn to talk about these things with other people and hopefully save really cool areas like this. Have a good day.